I had an unbearably embarrassing experience one New Year's Eve when I was younger, in front of a bunch of family friends, who still tease me about it well over a decade later. It all stemmed from a tradition that my family had with a group of my parents' college friends and their families. Every New Year's Eve, all of us would go to a hotel and spend the night celebrating the holiday. Each family would have their own room, but since everyone, including the kids, would stay up until well after midnight, we wouldn't spend much time in our own family's room. Usually, the adults would go to one hotel room and hang out, while the kids would all hang out together in another hotel room. Us kids would play games, watch TV, and goof off until just before midnight, when we would turn the TV on to the festivities in Times Square so that we could watch the ball drop. And after that, we would toast the new year with glasses of soda or sparkling cider. But since there was a lot of time to kill in the early evening, well before midnight, we would usually occupy ourselves by going down to the hotel pool and swimming until the pool closed, which would usually happen around 10 or 10:30, depending on which hotel we were staying at. After the pool closed, we would all go back to our rooms and change out of our dripping wet bathing suits and get into our pajamas. After that, the kids and adults would separate, with the kids going to whichever room had been designated as the gathering spot for us, and the adults going to whichever room they had claimed. Well, one year, my family had gotten back to our hotel room after we'd been swimming in the pool. It was about 10:30, and my brothers and I were going to change our clothes and then head off to hang out with the other kids. But I was an older kid at this point, and hygiene and cleanliness had become very important to me. I was well aware of the fact that I'd just been swimming in a pool that was used daily by dozens of other hotel guests who were all strangers to me and who could be carrying God only knows how many germs. I also didn't love the fact that I smelled like chlorinated pool water, and I wanted to make sure that I smelled soapy fresh for the rest of the night. So, while my brothers simply changed out of their bathing suits and into their pajamas, I decided to go into the bathroom and take a quick shower. I scooped up my pajamas and threw them up in a pile on the towel rack so that I could just change into them in the bathroom when I was done with my shower. I was in the shower for about 5 to 10 minutes, and I figured that that was a short enough amount of time that I probably hadn't missed anything. In fact, I assumed that all of the families were probably still in their own rooms and hadn't even separated into the designated kid and adult rooms yet. I got out of the shower and grabbed my pajamas off the towel rack. It was then that I saw that only my t-shirt, sweatshirt, underwear, and socks were there in the pile. My pajama pants were nowhere in sight. I looked all around the bathroom floor to see if maybe I'd dropped them, but I didn't see them. I looked on the counter around the sink to see if maybe they'd fallen off of the rack, but they weren't there. I even pulled back the shower curtain to see if they'd somehow fallen in there, but nope. I realized that I'd made a big mistake and either hadn't pulled them out of my duffel bag when I grabbed the rest of my clothes, or I dropped them somewhere in the room as I carried the pile of clothes to the bathroom before my shower. I would have to exit the bath to get them, and my only options were to go out in just my underwear or to put my soaking wet swimsuit that reeked of chlorine back on. As far as I was concerned, there was almost nothing in the world more uncomfortable than putting on a wet bathing suit. The swimsuit was so cold, and I was now nice and warm after my shower. Unfortunately, the pair of underwear that I brought with me was a pair of orange briefs. Why I'd chosen to wear briefs, particularly orange ones, instead of boxers that day is a mystery to me even to this day. Maybe I was out of clean boxers that morning. Maybe they were just the pair that was at the top of the drawer. Maybe I just decided to be adventurous. But whatever led me to make that decision, that was the only pair of underwear that I had with me to put on. But it wasn't like this was a huge deal. I mean, true, it wouldn't be fun to walk out and look for my pajama pants with no pants on while wearing a pair of briefs. But the only people who would see me would be my immediate family. I knew that none of our friends were outside, since they were all still in their own rooms getting changed. My brothers would probably have a little bit of a laugh at my expense, but I had plenty of embarrassing dirt on them. So I'd just use that against them, and that would easily silence whatever chuckles they squeaked out. I put on my t shirt, sweatshirt, and the orange briefs. Then I opened the bathroom door and walked out. The sight that greeted me when I walked out and turned the corner is one that will haunt me for the rest of my life. It was not my family in the room anymore. or not just my family. In the 10 minutes or so that I'd been in the shower, everyone had already separated into the designated kids' room versus adults' room, and during that time, it had apparently been determined that all of the kids were going to gather in my family's room. My parents had gone off to join the adults in one of the other rooms, and lounging on the beds and on the floor of our room were my brothers and all of the kids from the other families. That meant that I was now standing in front of about a dozen kids and teens with no pants on and wearing a pair of bright orange briefs. For a split second, I thought that maybe nobody had seen me since they all seemed to be occupied with laughing, talking, and giggling amongst themselves. I hoped that I could turn around and dart back into the bathroom before anybody saw me, but no such luck. It only took about a second before my brother spotted me and started pointing and loudly laughing at me. Before long, all of the other kids followed suit. Pretty soon, howls of merciless, deafening laughter reverberated throughout the room. In fact, the guffaws from the other kids were so loud that I could have sworn that someone in the neighboring rooms would come over and tell everyone in our room to shut up. As I stood there not knowing what to do or where to go, I kept hoping that maybe somebody would come to the door and scold the other kids for laughing so hard, and then I could duck into the bathroom to escape all of this humiliation. But luck again proved that it was not on my side that night. I was so petrified with shame and embarrassment that I was frozen in place. I knew in my head that things were not going to get any better unless I found the courage to move, but my brain and my legs were not communicating with each other. I was so mortified that my legs were practically locked in place as everyone else continued their endless chorus of chuckles. I still couldn't process that this was actually happening to me. This seemed like a scene out of one of those nightmares where you find yourself standing in front of a crowd of people with no pants on as they taunt and ridicule you. But at the time, that whole scenario seemed like something that could never happen outside of a bad dream. I had no idea that such an experience could occur in real life. Finally, one of my brothers, whose face was drenched in tears from laughing so hard, took the tiniest bit of mercy on me and tossed me my pair of pajama pants. This was apparently the jolt that my legs needed to kick into gear and run away. With the pants in hand, I turned around and practically dove back into the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind me. I did put the pajama pants back on, but I just knew that I wouldn't be able to go back out there and face everybody again. Even with my pants on, the image of me standing there in my embarrassing briefs would not be erased from their memory anytime soon. I was going to be in for even more teasing when I finally emerged from the powder room, and I was not looking forward to enduring that. So I sat down on the bathroom floor and just tried my best to let the time go by, hoping that giving them some time to calm down would mean that the taunting would be less severe when I finally came back out. Well, as it turned out, I kept myself locked away in the bathroom for the better part of an hour. It wasn't until nearly midnight that I finally was able to summon up the courage to rejoin them. I hoped that the excitement about the countdown to New Year's would distract them from the humiliating incident that they'd witnessed earlier in the evening. Fortunately, the time that I'd spent sequestering myself in the bathroom had allowed them to settle down a little bit, but there were still plenty of mocking smirks and sniggers thrown my way as I re-entered the room. Needless to say, this was not exactly the most auspicious way to ring in the new year.